All right. Welcome, Oneness Fish. Welcome to the podcast, the Krav and Stuff podcast, episode number 5, everybody. So excited to have Oneness. He is a great friend, a great mentor. We just got done doing an amazing seminar at here at Krav Maga Spokane, your ranges seminar, which I think went over really well. We filled it up. And even I learned new stuff. I love that every time when I get to learn something from you. So well, awesome. And so let's get started off. Let's talk, give us a little background. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I started my martial arts career in TaeKwonDo in 1990 and went through that, competed for a number of years and tested all the way through to 3rd degree. And then during that time, Kirsten, my wife, opened a Taekwondo school herself in her hometown. I was competing and getting ready for a U.S. Open. I got injured pretty significant, and so that just kind of derailed the Taekwondo career at the time. And then we had a couple of incidences and different things. She found Krav Maga and signed us up. And so we went down to the National Training Center, and we were one of the first licensees in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, in the Northwest. And I fell in love with it. First 5-10 minutes of it, and that was it. And so we started pursuing that. So we did that in 1999 is when we started the Krav Maga career. So for 26 years, 27 years, we've been doing Krav. And I just kind of eliminated that. I also had the luxury of meeting Boss and started training with Boss. And then we opened Boss Root and Systems and did that for about 9 years, 11 years. And yeah, so it's just kind of progressed from there. So that's kind of the martial arts journey.
Background. So you started Taekwondo. Is that how you met Kirsten?
Yeah, so we met kind of the way the school functioned before, and it was a big school. It had 1,200 students in there, and Kirsten taught, I think, 36 classes a week there, and she was kind of the mentor apprenticeship program to be the lead instructor, and was that for a number of years. And so their kind of premise was that when they had the free trial lessons, the girls would do the free trial lessons for the guys that came in, and then vice versa for the guys would do the girls. And it was a great marketing scheme or premise from there, but it worked out well. And that's when I met Kirsten and stuff. And so we were always friends for a number of years, and then we just started dating, and that was it. And
you guys been together how long?
32 years.
Holy cow.
So the whole
Congratulations on
so
that.
It's been good.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait to have her on. She's been, you guys are just the greatest
she's a
tag team duo for sure. So you trained a lot in Taekwondo. You got injured. You were going to do USA?
Yeah, US Open. That was kind of the big tournament. The school that we had, that we trained at, we had a lot of, Kirsten was an Olympic level competitor, and then we had a lot of friends that were Olympic level competitors. And they did US Opens and stuff. And then when she established her school, we wanted to also kind of have those same credentials. And so if you won the US Open or were a competitor, it just kind of established your Taekwondo school amongst the others and stuff. And so that's what I was training for, as well as Kirsten and others in the school. But I had an injury, and that took me out and stuff like that. And I wasn't even sure after I got injured and she found Krav, if I was going to be able to do that. But we went down there with the premise that we're going to get through it. And then I knew at that point in time I was going to get my black belt in Krav, and that was the only path that I wanted.
So you did the training, you guys met, and she started the school, and then she found Krav.
She did, yeah. We had a couple of incidences in just real altercations. And we realized, Taekwondo was good. We had a good foundation, and it was very self-defense orientated, and not just the competition style. But there were obviously some things that we couldn't kind of deal with. We needed the open space and all that stuff to kind of maneuver and do some of those things. And Krav was just ultimately ended up being the answer for that. We also did some things with our local police department, and in order to kind of do that, we were starting to dabble, Kirsten more so, to be reserve police officers. And then when she found Krav, she said, look, if I'm going to kind of pursue this and go become a police officer or anything like that, I want something that's just really self-defense orientated. And so she found Krav and was looking for that answer. And I was very hesitant initially. I'm like, I have TaeKwonDo and I have wrestling. I don't need anything else. I'm good to go. And so I was very resistant initially. But once we were down there, that was it. I knew that this was the program that I really wanted when I started my martial arts career. So it was good. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. So, training in TaeKwonDo, what was that like going all the way through first to third degree black belt?
Well, it was big, and we had a phenomenal TaeKwonDo instructor, Grandmaster Lee. He had a really good program, knew how to build instructors, so he had instructor programs and doing all those things. And I never wanted to be an instructor initially. I just wanted to train, I wanted to compete, I wanted to kind of go through that journey. But as you moved up through the ranks, that's the process that it just naturally flowed that way, which is the same for a lot of martial arts schools. But then I started doing the instructor programs that he had, and I got a little bit more comfortable. I was never somebody to be in front of the classroom and lead a class. Really? I would rather much be a wallflower. And then I still remember my first belt test that I got to conduct and run. And Kirsten and Mashley were in the back, and they're like, I think he's going to pass out. And that was before the class. And I probably was. So they were making bets. Everybody else was laughing. But I made it through, and it kind of the bug bit. And then that was it. And then when I found Krav, well, I didn't find it, but when Kirsten found Krav, and I went down there, it just really kind of established that, hey, I could do this on a more full-time basis. And so when we came back, I stopped teaching TaeKwonDo entirely. And I only concentrated on Krav. And we took about probably, I'd say a good 2 months before we even started teaching the classes. And then I still relied quite a bit on Kirsten because she could teach anything at any time. And she had that ability. And finally, she's just like, I'm no longer going to be in class and around, so you just learn to teach and stuff. And so I just jumped all into the deep end of the pool, and that was it. And then through Krav, that's where I met Boss. And then Boss was just that other missing link that I needed for the teaching. And he's really good about the why of things and how to kind of present things a little bit different. And it just all clicked. And then from there, it morphed into my current job.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. So with the Krav Maga training, were you still 7 days, or were you in the 9-day groups?
I was in the 9-day group.
Wow, you were.
So we were being in that first one. There were 34 of us, 36 of us in that initial group. The requirement was everybody had to be first through 5th degree. They had to have a black belt
in some other style.
In some other style. And then they told us right from the get-go that, hey, about 60% of this class is not going to pass. So
was that true? Hold on.
There was quite a few of us that didn't pass in that group. But there was also a core group. Like they picked the people that knew that were going to be able to be a part of that initial classes. And it kind of grew from there. But there were some people that didn't pass, and that was a crush to their egos.
Especially having a black belt and then getting shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, saying you're not good enough for our system.
Yeah.
Because there is a level of pride that comes with any black belt in any style. In my opinion, as we both have our black belts.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So they really just kind of emphasized that they were looking for a particular group to be able to build that next group of students as well as instructors. And so it definitely, you could just feel it was just different.
I definitely feel that it was some of the best training. It really was. That was one thing I've talked about, especially on this podcast, is how well they did at developing instructors. And you don't see it maybe until you're further on down the road, right? But that was a great part of it. But for you to be involved in the original, some of the OG part of it, all the way to black belt. So what was your phase training like Was it all 9 for all of them until you got into expert series, or was even black belt more days than what I experienced?
Yeah, so the first 2 phases, let me take that back, were 9 days. And then after that, they made a change to the program and they went to 7 days. The 7 days was still just as intense as the 9 days. But we had the luxury of during phase A, it was the core group that had been training with Darren from the get-go, as well as people that had trained with Amy. So Darren taught a lot of the classes. Marnie, she was there. She was teaching a lot of the classes. Michael Margolin. So I think John Whitman, we met everybody, kind of the core group of original instructors and those that were running the National Training Center within those 9 days. And we had probably 2 days with each person. And then in phase B, I think it was all Darren. Darren really just made sure that all of us that were coming back, that he really made the time and stuff. And I had the opportunity to kind of be his, when he was demoing things, he kept calling me up. Yeah, we were doing a lot of bear hug defenses and hair pull different things. And so again, with that, my hair and all that stuff, so he like grabbing a hold of that. And so that it was just, that's where I started learning, I think, even more, because not only did I get the application of how to do things, but I got to feel it, like how he moved and how he presented it. And so it just always kind of continued on from there, because when I started training with Boss, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to actually feel what they were presenting. So
that's awesome that you got to train with the people that I've had the luxury of training with. A couple of those people in my years of training, and it's different. It's different. Not that any of the other instructors weren't great, but it was just, you knew you were training with a different person, a special person, and just absorbed that. And so it made those days, even though you were beat to shit and tired as hell, you were like, cool, ready to go, ready to go. And it was so few, especially as time went by, you realize like, oh man, you're not going to get those chances to get with, the Pascals and the Levines. And it was really something else. And there's folks that I never got to train with. Marnie, of course, because she passed. But Sadea, I never got to train with him. So it's all so awesome to hear, because I know what I went through, but you hear the rumors of what it was like in the first ones. And so that's where it's an opportunity to get to share that a little bit with folks like myself, because there's others out there that went through what I went through, but didn't do the 9 days. And so it's interesting. You had to have a black belt. They told you right out of the gate that you were a high percentage were going to fail and wash out. And but then the training just proved to itself how invaluable and effective it was.
Well, that's it. And I remember the first day we did so much striking, and I was not a striker. And it just like, is this never going to end? I was like looking at Kirsten going, what did you sign me up for? And I don't think I can make it through this. I've never done that much punching. But finally, about day 3, we started getting into kicking. And then it was like, okay, this is easy, and I can do this, and that part's there. But I still remember it, and I woke up the next morning and I could barely move, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through it. And then after the warm-up, you forgot about being sore, and then
it's the craziest thing that we go through as a human with that, as far as like, you're just like, oh my God, you're so sore. And then it gets loosened up, and you're just like, oh, we're almost done with the day, and then you got another one on the tail end of it. I've heard, you shared with me a little bit about your black belt test. I know you had a point to prove on that, and so I definitely want to talk about Boss here in a second. But with that black belt test, what was the hardest mental? I know the physical component, it's hard. You were injured just like I was injured. But what was that mental aspect? Do you feel that the black belts that you took prior in TaeKwonDo helped you, or was this on a different level?
It was a different level. The black belt test for TaeKwonDo, again, nothing to discredit it, but because I had done it for so much, and I knew what was coming and what the expectation was, I could do that even if I didn't train. Like, I could pull that stuff off, and I just knew that I had to do the forms and all of that stuff, and anything that instructor threw out, I had already done it. With Krav, because it's very selective on who they have the black belt test. And it was a 3 days that they really wanted to kind of set that up. But you had to complete the expert series. But it was an unknown. And then you always know that, look, phase A test was tough. Phase B was harder. Phase C was even more. And it's like, it was an unknown. The expert series, although they kind of had tests, they were more workshops to build up towards the black belt. And it didn't have the same structure, but there was an unknown. And then you knew that you were going to do one-on-one sparring, you were going to do 2-on-1, you might do 3-on-1.
Round Friday.
All of the stuff. And so, and a lot of times what happened is that they would bring in sometimes other instructors from other schools or professional fighters and work towards that. In our black belt tests, they didn't bring any professional fighters in, which I was a little surprised because a group of us were all Boss Rutan instructors. But I went down there to kind of prove a point about Boss Rutan.
Did you prove the points?
I did. And so a lot of times I told the people that I had trained with over the years and all that, hey, if you step out on the mat, there's a good chance that I was going to knock you out. And because I went there. Harry Shaw, unfortunately, he took the brunt of that.
Spleen, right?
Stuff. I hit him in the spleen. Yeah. What happened with Harry, being a Boss Rutan instructor, he started turning away when I was hitting those shots. And I told him, I said, if you turn away again, I'm gonna drop you.
As in turning away from the power.
The power in the punch, yeah. So we rather have people turn into it and try to block it.
Yeah.
And so what happened was he turned away. And I was already frustrated. I had injured my hamstring again, so I couldn't kick. And those guys were being generous as far as that they weren't kicking my legs. So it was more just upper body stuff. And so I was more frustrated on that. But then when I seen that he was turning away, the switch just flipped the rest of the way. And I hit him as hard as I could. And to his credit, he doesn't remember the last 15 minutes or half hour of the test. He stayed in there. He made it through.
Oh, he didn't go to the hospital.
And then he went to the hospital afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he went afterwards. So he did another 15 minutes to half an hour. All on his own.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Now I made, I had a little karma coming back on that. I made it was on Facebook, I believe, and we were commenting, I believe it was history of that. And I made a comment about him having to go to the hospital because of you. And then in my black belt test, Harry took me to the hospital. So it all came full circle, right?
Full circle.
It's all full circle. Now I have to ask, there was a rumor that you threatened to throw, it was a small room at the Worldwide West location, West LA. That small front room, that you threatened to throw someone out that window.
Yeah. So we had another person that was in the test from one of the other schools, and he intentionally just kind of tried to do like a shovel kick towards everybody's knees. And so myself initially, I told him, hey, we're not doing those type of kicks. We just didn't want to end it. I had to work the next, that week.
Yeah, most everybody does that work, right?
And then Heath Jones was also there taking the test with us. And so Heath also basically said, and then that person injured another person that was going through the test.
With that shovel kick?
Not with the shovel kick. We were actually doing the edge weapon defenses. Darren came in, and so we switched from the training knives to real knives. And then one of the guys got cut, so it ended his test, and he took like 50 stitches.
It almost ended his career, too.
It almost ended his career. Yeah, he's a firefighter, captain for one of the local fire departments there. Really good training partner and all that stuff. So we didn't realize it might have been done on purpose. So I think if we would have known, the test would have been even different. But
did he get his in the end?
Yeah, we did. Between Heath and I, we tuned him up. Harry, I think all of us did. We just didn't do it as bad as we would have if we would have known the other thing.
But I think that was maybe what changed to where there was no more live-edged weapons.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, and it was great. It definitely changes that element.
Yeah.
I was glad to have that experience with Darren and having him kind of work through that. But there was a gut check moment when the real knives came out and still trying to make those edge weapon defenses. You think that you're
wild.
prepared, and it
No.
just completely different.
It does. Jared brought him out on his brand new Dollar mats at his location, and it was the internal dialogue that you had with yourself was like, holy shit! You had to be spot on. You had to do it right, because there was that unknown variable that was really live and potential, and that was a unique experience. But to have it in a test, that wasn't even a test. That was just a training day for me.
And what happens is the confidence level, because now when it's a wood knife or a training knife, you're like, oh, this is,
we're good to go.
This is nothing. And it's the same thing. I say it the same, like when I spar people, I can go for a long time without sparring people, but because I had the luxury of sparring Boss and Benji Raddick and some of these other guys over the years, now, not to pick on anybody else, but I can see things so much more different because of that level of experience that you just don't get that luxury all the time.
It changes the game.
It does. It changes that game.
And you were the most feared sparring partner that I've sparred with, but you were also the best. Because that feedback of like, we go hard and then you go soft, right? And it was that mutual respect, and that's what makes a great training partner. I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's just something that I think people take, and I've used that example, like I was scared to death, ready to step on the mats with you, but then after we got into it, I knew you could end it at any point in time. But the exchanges were done in a way to where I was like, oh, okay, where he's not going to go all out. He's going to meet me where I'm at. He's going to give me a little, but then we're going to go back down and communicate well.
And that's the way it was with Boss. Every single time. I mean, he really ultimately sees things so far ahead of anybody else, and he could literally knock you out at any time. It just, his game is so much different than anybody else. And so when he spars with you, he's only going to go with what you're going to go, but he's going to work on specific things, and he'll tell you that that's what he's going to work on. And then everything's just set up to kind of work on those things. And if he gets it, then he's going to move on and he'll let you know that he's working on something else. But the whole point is to build that confidence for you that, hey, I can do this and go. And then when I had the opportunity to train with Hector Pena, who's another, 13-time world champion, phenomenal fighter, and a huge pedigree, I learned a ton from him in a short amount of time. And he was another one that could easily, he got world champion.
Was it Hector that dropped you out with the liver shot?
Yeah, he was the first one that really ever did that. And I was not smart enough to stay down, so I got right back up and went after him again. I tried to hit him with an axe kick immediately afterwards, pull something off from the TaeKwonDo world, and he paid me back for that. And then I got up a third time, just not smart enough to stay down. And the hand was here, so right away he did it. Hit right to the head. So the hand went up, and then he hit it again. Yeah, and that was it. And then the third time I was smart enough to stay down.